Vera Freidin, author of Zachor, I Remember, Will You, is a Holocaust survivor who spent her formative years in Žilina, a city in northwest Slovakia, some 200 kilometres from the capital Bratislava, close to both the Czech and Polish borders. She is presently a resident at the Emmy Monash Homes. We invite Vera Freidin to deliver her testimony.
I stand here as a proud Australian, grateful for the opportunities and privileges my family and I have been given in this wonderful country. I happily acknowledge the traditional owners of this country and extend my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Nearly 90 years ago, to my very good fortune, I was born to two outstanding individuals, Armin Windholz and Ilush Polak. Mother and father were clever, progressive, forward-thinking people many decades ahead of their time. Educated and cultured, they were good people, unselfish, community and family-minded. They instilled strong values and principles in me, which I successfully passed on to my daughters and they to their children. My brother Peter and I were well loved and we knew it. Mother and father obviously enjoyed each other's company and were not afraid to show it. I was born and raised in Žilina, a town located close to both the Czech and Polish borders and only 2 hours from Auschwitz. Žilina's pre-war population was 20,000. 17% were Jewish. The Nazis murdered 84% of us. Žilina's population is now 85,000, less than 50 of whom are Jewish. I was 6 years old when I started school at a Jewish primary school. I loved learning, I still do. Because the standard of my school was high, and because the German language was taught as an official subject, many non-Jewish children also attended my school. But being a Jewish school, we also learned to read Hebrew, and we received a solid grounding in Jewish scripture and history. As my primary school education came to an end, I had the option to attend one of Žilina's 4 secondary schools. One offered a generalist education, another specialized in business and secretarial skills, and the other 2, the girls' and boys' gymnasiums, catered for the more academic student. That was where I wanted to go. Anti-Semitism was already rife in Žilina. The gymnasium had a quota known as numerus clausus, which meant that only 1 Jew could be enrolled to every 15 Gentile students. I had to pass an entrance examination to be accepted at the gymnasium. The competition was tough, with most of my peers also vying for the few Jewish spots on offer. My parents were extremely proud when I successfully attained a place. I was thrilled and eagerly anticipated the next stage of my education. I got my new school books, including a dictionary and an atlas, which I cherished. I carefully wrapped my books in blue paper to protect them, ensuring the creases were sharp and crisp. I was happy. Just as the new school year was about to start, the Slovak government, inspired by the Nuremberg laws, legislated a series of extremely stringent anti-Jewish laws. We Jews were now subject to a strict 6 o'clock curfew. We were forbidden entry to parks. We weren't allowed to attend sporting activities, movies or theaters. We were prohibited from participating in our country's political, economic or cultural life, and we had to wear a prominent yellow magenta wheat on our outer garment whenever we were in public. For me, as a child, the worst of all, the harsh restriction was the numerus clausus was changed to numerus nullus. Not only could I not attend the school to which I had so eagerly anticipated, but as a Jew, I was no longer allowed to receive an education past year 8. Žilina's Jewish community refused to accept that edict and deliberately kept students back in year 8, year after year, to repeat the year. Jewish academics volunteered to teach higher levels at our school. One even gave classes about atomic energy, a new emerging science. As a result of the anti-Jewish laws, father's considerable inventory as civil engineer and builder was confiscated. However, because of his qualification and reputation, he was appointed as Žilina's city engineer despite him being Jewish. Notwithstanding father's professional expertise and standing, his wage was reduced to 1,500 crowns, the maximum any Jew was allowed to earn. This barely covered the rent we were now required to pay for living in our own home. Armed with a foreknowledge of what was happening in Germany, father had constructed a secret cupboard, a cupboard within a cupboard, when he built our house several years earlier. The secret cupboard successfully hid and protected our extended family's Judaica, jewelry, and other precious items, despite our home having been used by the Germans as headquarters and then by the Russians as a brothel. The transport from Žilina to Auschwitz started on 25th March 1942. Žilina, the largest of Slovakia's 5 deportation camps, was the last stop en route to Auschwitz. Father, extremely distressed what was happening at the camp, the condition of which were appalling, decided to make the suffering of our fellow Jews just a little easier. He bribed the Red Cross official for the armbands. Having exchanged the yellow stars for Red Cross armbands, father and his friends entered the camp, removed corpses, offered fresh water to those awaiting the final leg of the journey, and emptied the toilet buckets on the cattle trucks. The site of Žilina's transit camp is now home to Žilina's Holocaust Memorial, aptly named Road of No Return. A few weeks after the Žilina transports began, our doorbell awoke us. Father's eldest sister stood on our doorstep with her husband and children. She had to come say goodbye. They had been rounded up and were on their way to the transports. An hour later, the same thing happened, and another sister and her family were saying goodbye to us. This happened over and over and over again that night, and it was only that night when I first saw father cry. My loving, good father sobbed uncontrollably, unable to do anything to stop the terrible tragedy that was unfolding. The next morning, 17 of 40 chairs in my classroom were empty. The Nazis murdered at least 38 of my family, 38 people I knew, loved and still remember. As a direct result of headlines, the Grenzbote, the German newspaper, wrote, "How is it possible that in 1943 the Jew Windholz is still Žilina's chief city engineer? Father, Peter, and I were arrested. I was 13 years old. We were taken to the Novaki labor camp, where thank goodness family groups were allowed to stay together, so I wasn't separated from father or Peter. Mother wasn't arrested, as she was in hospital at the time, still very weak from her surgery and subsequent complications. Mother desperately searched for ways to have us released. An unexpected opportunity arose when a newspaper article reported that President Tiso, the president of the Slovak Republic, was looking for a civil engineer to supervise his new building project. Mother successfully arranged for him to be informed that father would be perfect for the job. And so, while still officially a camp inmate, father was seconded as Tiso project manager. Peter and I were released and allowed to return home. Father was able to come home every Shabbat. The partisans' actions against the German forces became increasingly more frequent, and the official repercussion became increasingly devastating. And so the next phase of our Shoah experience started. We went into hiding. Unknown to Peter and me, one of father's non-Jewish colleagues, her engineer David, had previously offered to hide us should the need arise. At dusk, we walked separately so as not to appear to a family group. We were each allowed one small satchel with our basic essential. We each wore 3 sets of clothing. What did I, a 13-year-old girl, consider to be my essentials? Photos, school reports, and clean underwear. The Davids had a secret wine cellar concealed behind a sliding door, hidden behind a bookcase. The cellar, like all cellars, was underground, and a skylight made of thick glass bricks formed part of the footpath. On our 3rd day at the Davids, the Gestapo arrived. We could see their boots through the glass tiles at footpath level. We could hear what was being said. Unsuccessful in discovering us, they pushed the David's maid against the wall, put a gun to her stomach, and yelled they knew there were Jews in the house. The maid, who had no reason to be loyal to us, chose to protect her employers. Only one penalty would have been applied had she revealed the truth: death for us and death for the Davids. The Nazis didn't shoot the maid, but promised to return the next day with sniffer dogs. Plan B came into instant action. Separately, again, and under the cover of night, again, Mother, Father, Peter, and I made our way to the home of another non-Jew by the name of Paul Strba. Unlike the David family, the Strbas were poor, working-class folk who lived in a small cottage on the outskirts of Žilina. A self-educated man, Paul Strba was a laborer and a communist. Mrs. Strba, an illiterate but devout Catholic, was understandably distressed about the danger to which her husband was subjecting their family. Despite her fears, being a good wife, she did as her husband expected. Her hostility, though, was always evident. The Strbas' straw-filled, mouse and flea-infested roof space became our home for the next 8 months. Only 50 centimeters at its highest point, we spent our time in the roof lying down or crawling if we really needed to move. Once in the roof, we were isolated from everyone and everything. We were left to deal with our situation and fear as best we could. A pulley hauled up our breakfast, some sandwiches and fresh water every morning. A clean bucket was also provided, the purpose of which I leave to your imagination. Our only light came through the space created by removing 2 small bricks from the wall. Paul Strba and his sons cleared the roof of snow each day, so our breasts so very close to the roof would melt it and give us away. I was paid a wage. For each hour, I kept my little brother quietly occupied. Had mother and father paid me what they owed me, I would be now a wealthy woman. A man of faith, father became more religious and put our life in God's hands. Mother, on the other hand, was more practical and proactive, convinced that it was up to us to survive. While father spent his day sleeping or praying, mother planned and schemed. One terrible afternoon, while the Strbas were not at home, deep German voices boomed from beneath us. We thought we had been discovered. We couldn't move, not even a bit, lest we give ourselves away. Thank goodness none of us coughed or sneezed. The Germans remained oblivious to our presence, barely a meter above their heads. Apparently, they had not come to find and apprehend us, but to inform the Strbas that their property was to be confiscated. There were many, many occasions when we thought the end had come. Another instance that remains in the forefront of my mind was when we walked to the timber roof, only inches from our faces sagging under a person's weight. We thought again that we had been discovered. We were so scared that we could hardly breathe. The next morning we learned that the footsteps had not belonged to the Gestapo, but to a burglar who had been running from roof to roof. When I think of the 8 months we spent in the Strbas roof, I don't just think of constant and debilitating fear we experienced, but also of miracles that occurred. The fact that we survived at all was a miracle. The fact that we survived without becoming permanent emotional cripples is another miracle. That there were many other miracles too. I don't underestimate the magnitude of the miracle that people like Davids and Strbas took us in despite the risk to their own families. Another miracle is how mother didn't set us all alight with her smoking. Heavily addicted to cigarettes until her death, mother smoked using straw in place of tobacco. Father was frequently angry, wondering how she could possibly risk turning our roof space into our personal crematorium. After all, we were hiding there so that the Germans wouldn't incinerate us at Auschwitz. Towards the end of April 1945, there was a lot of shelling and bombing. One shell even pierced the roof where we were hiding. It was only days before we thought the war would end, and now looked like we would be killed by shrapnel in our hiding place. Paul Strba and one of his sons dug a grave-like bunker into the frozen ground, 2 meters deep and 1.5 meters wide. They carved 3 steps down into the bunker and a narrow bench along one wall on which we sat. It was terribly cold and dark in the frozen earth. With the cannon fire getting louder and more frequent, and with shrapnel falling about them, the Sturbas retreated into their home before completing a roof for our bunker. We were left open to the elements. While it was bitterly cold, thank God it didn't rain or snow that night. Wearing every item of clothing we had and wrapped in our dunas, we were literally freezing to death. We sat in that narrow grave from 4 in the afternoon on 29th April 1945 until we were liberated 12 hours later. The war was clearly very close. The cannon fire continued to become more and more frequent, getting louder and louder. It was very, very scary. Suddenly there was total silence. The German forces had retreated. The Red Army was just miles away, but we didn't know that as we were still in our bunker. The Sturbas set up tables with tea, coffee and food, ready to provide a warm, hospitable welcome to Russian soldiers. But we didn't know that either, as we were still in our bunker. At 4 in the morning of Monday, 30th April 1945, 74 years ago yesterday, Paul Sturba, together with a soldier, came to tell us that we were free people. I have no words to express how I felt. We were completely stiff and almost literally frozen. Mother and father had to be helped out of the bunker. A soldier carried Peter out. Our sense of relief was extraordinary. I can't imagine how we must have looked to the soldiers. We were terribly bedraggled, disgustingly filthy, smelly and feely infested. But who cared? At that moment, we certainly didn't. The war was over, we were alive, we were free. Hitler didn't want me or any Jew to survive, but not only did I survive, I strove to strive, and strive I did. I built a new life first in Slovakia, then in Israel, and now here in Australia. I am proudly Australian, I am proudly Jewish. To hatred and bigotry anywhere and everywhere, I say, we must each stand up to it whenever and wherever we see it. At nearly 90, I lead a happy and active life. I am interested in my family, my friends, and in world events. I am incredibly proud of my daughters, their achievements, and their families. My body may be slowing down, but my brain has not yet atrophied. I still have fire in my belly. As my daughter said, up yours, Mr. Hitler. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.